Thank you for tuning in to the Happy Hearts podcast with your host, Becca. Rate and subscribe as we power you to live with love. Hello, hi, and welcome to another episode of Happy Hearts podcast. I'm joined by my lovely HIVE Crew, helping individuals voice emotion with Amanda and Luna. And we are here today to discuss a two-part subject. And the second part will be on Luna's podcast, the Eclectic Circle. So if you want to carry on the discussion, you will have to hop over there and listen in because she's really cool.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So today we are going to be discussing a little bit about burnout, and we're probably going to touch a little bit on depression, but not too much because you'll have to hop over to Luna's channel to catch that part. But yeah, we're gonna talk about like what is burnout, how has it affected us, and you know how real of a thing it actually is. It's not just a couple of words. It's something that affects a lot of people, a lot of young people, surprisingly, and yeah, it's something that's not really discussed. And you know, here on Happy Hearts House, we like to discuss things that people don't normally talk about. So yeah, burnout. Amanda.
Hey.
How would you describe what burnout is? What does it mean to you when you hear those words?
Honestly, I have no idea how to describe it because you don't really realize that you're going through burnout until you're out of it. But like for me personally, everything just becomes so difficult. I have no energy, no matter how much sleep I actually get. And everything becomes so overwhelming. Like the smallest task, like going and doing my dishes, just seems like so much. And it doesn't matter how much rest you get because it's more of a mental thing, which is why it goes together with the whole mental aspect of it. So like sleep helps, but it's really just this dread that comes from being overwhelmed with absolutely everything.
Yeah. I mean, it'll present itself differently for everyone, won't it? But yeah, definitely like feeling like the word exhausted doesn't even cut it really. Like it's physically and mentally drained. Like for me, when I felt it myself, like you can't like you said, you don't recognize it at the time. And I mean, for me, it's presented as agitation, like I don't have as much patience, um, especially with my children.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I can be overly emotional. And when I say emotional, I'm like more like crying for what appears to be no reason because I can't really explain why it is. I just feel absolutely exhausted, like fed up. I just want to stop, And I mean, for me, what it feels like is it's a signal from within that we need to slow down. We need to take some time for ourselves and self-care. Um, but when you're in the midst of burnout, it's not easily recognizable as that. Um, and I think if we could connect more with, our connect more with ourselves and how and recognize like take time to recognize how we are actually feeling, what does our body need, then maybe we'd be able to move through it in a more positive way than, self-destruction. um, I mean, Luna, like you are obviously younger than we are. How does it affect you? Like when and you work as well, you do two jobs, and then you run in your home as well. You're doing a lot for such a young person. Yeah, I'm sure that you've experienced burnout at some point.
Yeah, definitely. So burnout for me, I still feel like I think I finally acknowledged that I have burnout now, and I couldn't figure out if it was like depression or anxiety or a mix of both, and then burnout because I definitely saw that my temper was really getting bad at work. Then once I had that not really a temper tantrum, but like just an internal just feeling of being angry and then not being able to like get that energy out was really exhausting. And then once I got like that anger gone, then that sadness would pop up. So it's like a mix of so many emotions coming together, and you just wear yourself out so much. And even talking about this, I can hear my voice like change because I haven't actually accepted it myself. Because you can say that you have like depression, anxiety, and you can just shrug it off really and be like, oh, it's perfectly fine, I'm doing good. And actually coming to the conclusion of being like, yeah, slow down, try figuring out what you're grateful for, come back to center is really important with burnout. And trying to figure out where your emotions lie so you don't hurt anybody in the process.
I actually like that you likened it to a temper tantrum because it's really like we revert back to being toddlers emotionally, and we go back into, I know a lot of people call it like monkey brain and whatnot, where you're just dealing with your base functions, but really it's exactly the same as a toddler would deal with things. That's exactly how burnout feels like, where you don't really know where the emotions are coming from, you don't know how to deal with it, and you're trying your best to get yourself feeling better, but you have no idea what's wrong and why and how to fix it, and just trying to feels like too much.
Yeah, definitely. I think I would liken it to a meltdown or sensory overload type of thing, because um like when you're in, so you wouldn't be at baseline. So baseline would be where you're just calm, you're going about happily, and then being out of your baseline would be like overload, meltdown mode. Or as we're saying, burnout, because you've taken more than you can carry, basically, more than you can take on, and your body's shutting that down mentally and physically, is shutting it down. And when you are in that process, you can't physically access your thinking brain, your thinking processes, anything logical. Um, and then that's where the difficulties lie, because how can you take care of yourself and make sure that you're doing things that um bring you back to baseline, when you can't access the thought processes and to enable you to do that. I remember one incident I had. I think I would have been around 18 or 19 years old, and I'd um, I was with a partner, and I found out that he cheated on me, and um, I had been living with him at the time, so I was like, I didn't know where I was going, and then I was also struggling for money because I was doing what we call here an apprenticeship, which means that you're basically working for less money than what you would be if you were professional. Um, so I was struggling for money. I was going through a breakup. Um, I was behind with my college coursework, and I went into work, and I was shampooing someone's hair, because at the time I was doing hairdressing, and this woman, she was complaining that the water was going in her ears, and I was doing my best to try and keep it away from her ears, because obviously she didn't like it. I'd given her extra towels. I'd put the shower on lower at the basin. I'd lowered the basin down so that it didn't spill into her ears as much. Um, and she just kept like batting it away and complaining, and I was trying to do my best to make her feel comfortable, but at the same time, because I was already feeling all these emotions going round in me, and I was just trying to keep my cool, I was trying to keep a lid on it. I could feel it rising inside, and then she said something, and she sat up. Um, and I just dropped the shower. I walked away from her, and I ran into the staff room, and I hid under the table crying and rocking. And nobody could talk to me or get me out from under the table, because I was just so upset, and everybody just thought it was because of this lady, and it wasn't. It was because I had lost it. I'd just broken down because I was experiencing burnout. I was exhausted. I had that much going on at the time that I couldn't think of anything. I couldn't speak to anyone. My body just shut down. I just threw myself on the floor in a ball under the table in the staff room, and I was inconsolable. They couldn't even get me out to send me home. They just had to leave me there because I wasn't responding to anything anybody said. eventually I did calm down enough to go home, but I never even ended up going back there because I was ashamed, and why should we be embarrassed that we're exhausted and that we need to have a break? You know, we're only human and we're all made to be able to carry different amounts of life, and life stresses. Um, and if something is too much, then that's okay. Why do we need to be embarrassed of that? You know?
I actually had a similar thing happen when I was working at this gas station. Um, at the time, I was going to school full time, working this job full time, and then also working a part time job in the morning before school. And I was doing all of that because I was taking care of my mom at the time. So I was having to work all of this extra time in order to be able to pay majority of the rent and the bills, just basically to keep my mom and my younger sister homed, essentially. So I remember it was, I think it was the Victoria Day long weekend, which is the first summer long weekend in Canada. And I was working completely by myself, which was normal. But with it being a long weekend, it wasn't okay to have me working completely by myself because there was just going to be so many people. And it's not possible to really shut down. So if I have to use the bathroom or go on a break, and those sort, well, didn't really get breaks. But if I have to go to the bathroom, I have to actually wait until the customers were out and then lock the store so that I can use the bathroom. But with it being the long weekend, everybody was heading up north to go to their cottages, and everyone was stopping to get gas on the way. So from the beginning of my shift to the end of my shift, there was not a single stop in the lineup. I had to go an entire 8 hours without eating or drinking or using the bathroom. And I hit probably about halfway through my shifts, probably about the 4 hour mark. And I broke and I just dropped to the ground, and same thing, curled up in the ball and just started shaking and crying, and had all these customers standing at the cash and couldn't serve a single one of them because I just hit my breaking point. And I think it was only about 10 minutes that I was sitting there doing that, and then I was able to get up and continue. One of the customers was really great and basically had everyone leave the store until I was okay. But that was really my first experience with burnout, that I was like, okay, this is not all right. Something has to change because I can't continue on like this. And that was my first real panic attack as well. So that was fun.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to go through, is it? And then to be able to identify, what put you in that position in the first place is very difficult. And to know the signs beforehand that things are getting too much is something that is learned as you go through it a few times. It's not like you can go through it one time and then you'll know how to handle it the next time. It's something that, you've got to take the time to know yourself. And I don't think that we're given time in this day and age to be able to know ourselves and to be able to actually become more in tune with our bodies and how much we can handle. because society expects so much of us, like our jobs, school, our parents, our kids, everybody expects something. And to be able to see where to draw the line, we need to create boundaries, and that is very difficult to do when it comes to, life now. And yeah, I think that that's the first thing to do, is to identify what boundaries do you need to be putting in place to take care of yourself, and how can you implement that so that it's not creating too much impact on other people around you, like Luna stated earlier, um, because we still have to care for people, and there's always somebody else who is going to either have an effect from us having these breakdowns and having this burnout, or there's someone who's going to be affected by the boundaries that we put in place in order to take care of ourselves. So how do we find that happy medium, really? I suppose it's a question.
Well, I've found that that's where having the boundaries and knowing that it's okay to say no to people comes in. Like yesterday, I had to go and take my kids to their school because they're not doing in-person learning this year, they're doing virtual learning. But I had to go pick up some equipment from their regular school so that my daughter can do the virtual learning properly. So since we were taking part of the day off of school, I decided to take the full day off of school and do a field trip for them instead. And we just went on a nature walk in our community instead of going into a forest, and went hunting for four-leaf clovers and butterflies and everything else we could find, and just took our time walking around and looking at everything and saying hi to people and like actually being a part of the world again. And not only did it reset me, but it reset them as well, because they're in such a better mood today. And it just stopped them from fighting, and it reset them to where they're happy and feeling rested and feeling like they can actually do school well again. So it's necessary to take those minutes or hours or even full days to just recharge and make sure that you get yourself back to a good place so that you can be functional for everybody else's needs.
Yeah, definitely. I think that doing things like walking out, taking a walk in nature, even if it's only like taking 5 minutes to go outside and, breathing some fresh air, as fresh as it can be, but, um, just taking them 5 minutes to just recenter yourself is important. I mean, Luna, you work a lot. How do you handle, these kind of emotions when you are in the workplace?
Yeah, so that's the difficult part because I have so many customers that just come up to me and we're very short staffed right now. So it's even more difficult. So I kind of go just retreat into the bathroom because there's a customer, or not the customer, but like employee bathroom, and I
Mhm.
just hide in there for just a couple minutes, and even just like resting my eyes and just relaxing is really nice, and getting away from a moment. But when I have my days off, I make sure to actually spend those times wisely, hang out with friends that I need to hang out, doing art. Like, if I'm not doing art, I'm not doing good. And that's how I can kind of fill up my tank again and just figure out what my personal needs, and even like shutting the door because I live with my mom as well. So that can be really difficult, and just trying to have both of our boundaries being met. And that is very important. And it's really nice to finally sit back and relax and kind of be like, hey, I'm in this present moment. I am okay. I am safe. I'm not back into the past or anything like that, because usually trauma can be a big thing as well for burnout. So it's really nice to just step back and just think about your life again.
I think even having that physical of being able to just close the door for you, that even without, speaking a word, that's you putting a boundary in place. You need that time to yourself. And I think that everybody should have their own space. Even children should have their own space. And, it's our job to make sure that that can happen. And sometimes, you've got to be cruel to be kind. Like, for instance, with Ava, with her having autism, she doesn't always realize that that space is needed for um, her to be able to, just reset and recharge. Um, so sometimes I have to tell her, go to your room, and that's not to be nasty, it's not to be put as a punishment, it's because she needs that time and that space on her own to regather her thoughts and her feelings and to, recover from the burnout. And she does experience it a lot, you know, especially right now because of the process of life that she's moving through. And especially with the trauma that she's been through. She does need at least a few minutes every day to recollaborate. And, at the moment, she doesn't realize that what I'm doing is trying to give her um, self-care techniques to be able to meet her own needs. She doesn't realize it, but I know that in the future, she'll be able to understand why I was putting those boundaries in place. Um, as a mother, it's difficult to meet them at a space where they're able to understand that these things are needed for their own health. Um, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only parent that struggles with um, helping their children to understand, how important it is to look after our emotional health. I mean, Amanda, you have two kids.
Yep.
So yeah, you must understand where I'm coming from.
Well, especially with our situation this year with them doing homeschooling, not only are they not getting the interaction with other kids their own age so much, but they're with each other 24/7 and they're with me 24/7. And that gets to be a little much for them, which is completely understandable. You with the same people all the time and nobody else, you get sick of each other. So I have to do the same thing by separating them and giving them a timeout just so they can take that time and kind of reset before they get too far with each other and get too far with me. Just take a breather, be by yourself. I do try to get them out every now and then so that they can meet other kids, especially in our neighborhood, because our neighborhood is very family oriented. So trying to get them to spend some time with other kids their own age so that they can still get that interaction and have a break from each other and have a break from me, which is really, really necessary. But yeah, I definitely get it. They don't understand what's going on because they're so young. Like Daniel turns 8 in a couple months, Anna just turned 6. So Daniel understands a little bit more, but Anna's still at the age where she's still trying to figure out what her emotions are. So it's hard for them to kind of express that they need a break and for them to understand that they need a break. So it's really important to be able to teach them those skills now so that they have those skills when they're an adult and they're in more stressful situations, even as a teenager. High school is so stressful. Just as they get more responsibilities and have more stress and more people demanding their time, having those skills already set in place is going to be a lifesaver.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one thing that's the job of Happy Hearts House and the Hive Crew is to debunk the myth that kids don't have stress, that kids they're not old enough to have stress or worry about anything. You know, everybody has a different upbringing, everybody has different experiences, and a different, way of thinking, a different way of processing, a different level of acceptance for the environment that they're living in, or even the world outside. And I think that debunking this myth that kids can't have stresses is one thing that's going to free them up to be able to gain the skills that they need for later on in life. And it's definitely something that we're going to be working on, building up a resilience to, as we progress and develop Happy Hearts House for, our little ones and the youth of today, hopefully. But yeah, I'm excited to carry on this conversation over on Luna's podcast with you guys. Thank you for joining me today for this short discussion. And yeah, if you guys listening enjoyed this discussion and want to carry it on, you can always hop into our Discord and leave any comments there. I'll be dropping the links down in the description. And yeah, we'll see you over on the Eclectic Circle for part 2. Thank you for listening. I'm Becca and I've been your host today on Happy Hearts Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll catch you next time. Until then, live with love.